everyone, and welcome to the final episode of the Madeline Makes series. It is the finale. Woohoo! We made it! Kind of. If you've been following us since the very beginning and watching every time we post, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you probably have noticed we are a little bit behind. Anyway, today is the finale. The bakers for this episode were charged with making for the signature challenge the ultimate chocolate cake. The technical was twice baked Stilton souffles, and the showstopper was a deceptive picnic. When I originally set on this challenge, I'll be honest, my goal was to make the showstopper for the finale. I think that was a bit of an illusion of grandeur because I have neither the means nor the talent to make a deceptive picnic type feast. So while I'm a little bit disappointed that I'm not going to be taking on the showstopper in the finale, that doesn't mean that what I will make won't be a showstopper. You know what I'm saying? You know? Today I will be making an ultimate chocolate cake. Yum. When I initially was trying to think of what to make for this challenge, I was asking myself, what does an ultimate chocolate cake seem like to me? What is going to hit the spot in terms of a chocolate cake? And there are a few criteria. Number one, of course, for me, it's gluten-free. It means I can eat it and not be sick. That's always a huge plus. The second thing that I look for in a chocolate cake is it indulgent? I don't want to eat chocolate cake and then think, yes, I don't feel like I ate too much. No, I want to feel indulgent. I also look for a multitude of textures, if that makes sense. I've never been a fan of those flourless chocolate cakes because I think that they're a bit one-dimensional. They're good, don't get me wrong, but when I'm talking about the ultimate chocolate cake, there's multiple elements that kind of lend itself to being this indulgent dessert. So for my dessert, I will be making a dark chocolate and orange cake. I am also going to be making candied oranges. I've made these before. They're effective and they are so delicious, but they do take a long time. So I'm actually going to do that first, and then we'll make our cakes and we'll go from there. I'm also going to do my best to make sure that the chocolate and the orange are married together well and balanced well in this cake. If you remember our last episode with the dome tartlets, I think I really missed on flavor there. It tasted good, it just wasn't complex. It was very one note, and a big part of making a dessert indulgent and successful is balancing flavors. That's what really takes it from like here to here. So that's my goal. All right, so first things first, we're going to slice our oranges about 1/4 inch and make a simple syrup and basically just simmer these for like an hour, and it will pull out that bitterness you get from the rind and the pith, and it should make kind of a stained glass effect with the oranges. So I'm gonna pop this over on the stove over there. I'm just gonna bring it to a boil, wait for this to dissolve, and then I'll add my oranges and let it simmer for about an hour. And then while that does its thing, I'm gonna make my cake. Okay, our sugar syrup has boiled, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my oranges and let that simmer. I'll keep an eye on it, hopefully not make caramel. And I'll let these simmer for about an hour. And then hopefully by that point our cakes are baked, our oven is cool. We'll check in. So one of the things that is going to make this cake particularly indulgent, I have this, I was recently over the summer on a trip to St. Petersburg, Florida, and came across this company, not sponsored, just a fan. And it's an olive oil and balsamic vinegar company, and they have all these different flavors, and I was shocked at the amount of flavor that could be put into an olive oil. I'm gonna use this as the fat in my cake. This is a very flavorful, citrusy oil. I don't think it will be enough for what the recipe calls for, so hopefully that flavor comes through. I think this is gonna end up making up about half of the oil that I need in my cake recipe. So here's what our batter is looking like. It's very liquidy, which I'm not surprised by. I see that often with chocolate cakes. I think I'm only doing 2 tiers, which kind of works out because apparently my oven doesn't like it when I do 3. If you remember, also from the Whiskey and a Teacup video, one of my cake layers came out completely raw. So sounds like my oven is having a heating issue, which kind of checks out. But anyway, this is my favorite way to prepare pans. However, my butter is usually frozen. This is not, but it's fine. I'm tempted to add chocolate chunks to this batter. Thinking how that would go in terms of texture, I think that would be really good. I'm just imagining having these little pockets of dark chocolate, and I think that would be really tasty. So I'm gonna add a little bit. I think this is going to be a very good cake. I'm very excited. And for good measure, a creepy smiley face. All right, to the oven. Woo! My oranges have been candying for about an hour and a half. I decided to just let them go until my cakes were finished. They're cooling over there. Let me grab one. So I got a bit of cracking, which just means there was the cake cooked faster on the outside than the inside, so it caused it to kind of crack. So I guess my cake strips were not wet enough, because that's supposed to help with that. And if you ever make candied orange peels, you'll know that they're ready when the pith right here is more translucent than white. If it's still white, it's gonna be bitter, so make sure it's translucent. Wow, they're really hot. I can feel it underneath how hot they are. All right, in about 45 minutes-ish, I'll start on my ganache so that we can get this cake decorated. Okay, to the oven. I'm gonna try to do a drizzle effect. I've seen that a lot on Bake Off. It's something I've never tried, but I think it's very effective. And then I may or may not make a buttercream. Now here's my reasoning. Last year, my wonderful friend Leanna had a baby shower, and I made a whipped ganache filling for the cupcakes that I brought to this baby shower. And this whipped ganache changed my life. It was so good. So I knew instantly when I was making an ultimate chocolate cake, that whipped ganache was going to make an appearance. So I'm going to be making this whipped ganache, and I intend to use that as the filling in the cake between the layers, and perhaps on the outside as well. I'm kind of gonna go for a naked kind of approach to the cake. It's gonna be a bit simple, but I think that is also what makes a chocolate cake great. I think a chocolate cake speaks for itself. I have this orange blossom water. It's not very strong, but I am gonna be putting this in the ganache just to kind of carry that floral citrus note throughout. All right, so I have my sponges here. This has been resting in the refrigerator for about an hour, so I'm gonna put it in here and I'm gonna whisk it for about 5 minutes. All right, looks good. Ooh. That is not stiff at all. What is going on? Ooh, you see how it's sloshing? Oh my gosh. Oh no. I think we're leaning. So this is not as easy to put on a cake as I thought. Oh my gosh. So it looks like the filling of the cake is completely coming out. Let's try this. Let's put lipstick on this pig. I was going for kind of a naked look. So, you know, I just meant like around the cake, not in between the layers. Okay, so really quickly, I'm gonna hop over there. I'm just going to melt together some dark chocolate, some butter, and some light corn syrup, and a little bit of vanilla. And then I'm gonna drip it on top, and I hope and pray that that doesn't ruin this cake, because I have a feeling it might. I have a feeling that my final challenge is going to be a fail. You know what I could do? I could just quickly make a buttercream. But I have a feeling, if I was on the show, there was no way I would have time for that at this point. So I kind of don't want to, because like this was my plan. All right, so this is supposed to drip over. Ooh, I really think this is a bad idea. Oh my gosh, okay. I'm gonna do it anyway because you gotta try it, you know? You gotta just push it, you gotta do it. This is not gonna drip. Oh yeah, it is. Oh my god. This is not good. It's the ugliest cake I've ever made, that's for sure. Let's quickly decorate it and be done. I may just leave it at that. It's done! Oh man. Okay, so here's my cake. It is easily the ugliest cake I have ever made. Obviously the ganache, the whipped ganache was not the way to go. So that was way too loose, not stable enough. But hey, I've never iced a cake with whipped ganache before. I really wanted to give it a try. I did. It failed. I would feel worse about this failure if, like the bakers, I had practice and practice and then I get to this point and it doesn't work. That didn't happen. This reminds me of the cake from Sleeping Beauty that the fairies make. It's leaning, you know.
Well, what do you think of it? Why, it's a very unusual cake, isn't it? Yes.
It was a good effort, but you know, as they say on the show, it comes down to flavor. So I guess we should taste it. I think it will taste really good. It looks horrendous. And if I was in the final in this, what was it they did on this season? Oh, this was Steph's season. I'm like Steph. She choked in the final. I love Steph. But she didn't have a good run for the final. And what did Paul Hollywood say? Oh, right, after they like ripped her apart, he went, "Never mind, Steph." Oof. So I feel kind of like that. Ugh, never mind. You gave it your best shot. I'm gonna redeem myself with this cake someday. Today's not that day. There's chocolate all over my kitchen, but let's slice it. Let's slice this. All right, so I'm gonna pretend like I just approached the judges with my last ever bake of the Bake Off series, and they look at it. Paul tries not to laugh. So, tell us about your cake. Okay, so today I made a chocolate and blood orange sponge with a whipped ganache with orange blossom in it that you can't even taste, and a dark chocolate top and candied oranges. Well, it doesn't look great, but it's all down to the flavor. Yes, indeed, Paul. Let's do it. You like that? This is gonna be a mess. So my bottom sponge here looks like it may have been underbaked. It looks very dense down at the bottom. The top sponge looks fine. It looks a little dense. As you can see, there is no filling whatsoever. It all splodged out. Okay, definitely chocolatey, definitely. So tick, in terms of chocolate, we got that. I definitely get the orange flavor in the sponge. I'm really happy with the flavor of the sponge. It's definitely chocolate on the forefront, but that orange is not lost. I definitely think that the olive oil had something to do with that. The texture is a little off overall on the cake. It is a bit stodgy, but I think it tastes good, which is, you know, the point. Let me try one of these. Delicious. I loved this idea, and I really want it to work, so I want to do it again. But maybe next time I incorporate that candied orange a bit more than just a topping. I feel like I could put that in like the middle or something, I'm not sure. In terms of ultimate chocolate cake, I think I hit it in terms of chocolate is definitely the star in this cake. Ultimate chocolate cake, I would say it is probably not, because ultimate is all encompassing, and let's be honest, it looked a mess. My texture was a bit off. That's probably because I used a different flour than what the recipe called for. So the recipe in the book I followed said to follow a Bisquick, I think is what it was, or their blend of flour, and their blend of flour was a little bit, I don't want to say rudimentary, that sounds condescending, but it was a bit simple, and I really enjoyed the all-purpose flour I have been using, and it often happens with gluten-free baking that, you know, if you mess up the flours that they're basing these recipes off of, you're not going to get the same result. So I would probably change up the base recipe in terms of the balance of liquid to flour and that sort of thing to adjust with that texture. I love the flavor profile. Next time I'll do buttercream and I'll get butter everywhere like I usually do when I make buttercream. I'm not all the way disappointed with this bake. I wish it had turned out differently, of course, but I took an idea with elements that I had never done before and I did them. So if I had made this for the first time and I was like, okay, I need to refine this to get on the show or for the show, I think I could do that and still be intact with my idea. So I still think my idea was solid. Not the note I had hoped to end this series on, but I am still so glad we did this series. It was really challenging for myself as an amateur baker, especially one that is stepping into a new realm of baking, which is that of the gluten-free realm. I have really enjoyed this. Like I said before, have tried out things that I have never done before. The Moroccan pie really stands out to me as a really exciting challenge that was difficult in technique. It was unusual to my own palate in flavor, and it was delicious. I ate that leftover filling from that pie for days. It was delicious, and I still have the ingredients in my pantry that I am excited to use, like that pomegranate molasses. So that's really exciting.
What's your favorite challenge?
So my favorite challenge was the 1920s week. I was so proud of my whiskey in a teacup cake. I think it really excelled in what I had tried to achieve in the flavor. The design really came up. It's how I wanted to feel at the end of this bake, but that was really exciting to have a theme and to really mold it into something that I was gonna make for myself. I was pulling from different recipes. This wasn't an idea I got off Pinterest type of thing. It's, here's the challenge, make a cocktail-inspired cake, and I really feel like I ran with that, and not only that, but something that encompassed the era in terms of trying to do that tea. I just felt like I could see that being on the show. So that was my that was my favorite. I'm really proud of that bake and where my own creativity took me in that bake.
What about your least favorite challenge?
Least favorite. It's hard to have a least favorite because it's hard to say, well, that challenge I didn't like. So I think for myself, my least favorite was the domed tartlets. Not because the challenge itself I disliked, but because my execution was so far off from what I hoped. It was not, I really wanted to execute that better, and I really tried to integrate with flavors that I'm not familiar with the tarragon. I had high hopes. So I think that may have been my least favorite because of myself, not because of the challenge itself. The challenge itself was cool, but yeah, that one was not one that I want to look back on. But it's interesting though to have not done well in the last challenge and not done well in this challenge for two different reasons. You know, the last one, my flavor was way off. This one, my flavor I think is really strong, but my execution was terrible. But I was disappointed in myself last time. I'm not disappointed in myself this time. I wish it had turned out differently, but I'm really glad that I had an idea in my head and I really tried to make it work, which is the whole point of the challenge. However, I would, if this wasn't the final, I would be in the bottom. No star baker here. So a technique that I was really glad I got to try was a mirror glaze. I have always found those really effective and cool on the show. And when a baker can pull it off, man, it is so cool. It takes a bake from like 0 to 1,000. So even though I wasn't pleased with last week's bake, I loved trying the mirror glaze and being fairly successful. I think it was a little thin, but yeah, I really enjoyed learning how to do the mirror glaze, and I think that's something I'll definitely incorporate again. So just as a recap of all the stuff that I made this past 10 weeks, we had the fruit cake in week 1. That was pretty cool. I used tea instead of rum. And that was just exciting because in the US, fruitcakes are a gag gift. They're not like taken seriously. They're not a part of our Christmas day. So it was kind of nice to try something in a non-ironic way. So, and it was so quintessentially British that it was nice to start off on that foot. The next thing I made were the fig rolls. Those were surprisingly delicious. I actually really like figs. And I think that's the only bake I've made where I actually like ate all of it. Most of the stuff that we make, it's just too much for the two of us. So we either give it away or unfortunately it goes bad before we can finish it. Those fig rolls I ate every night, every morning. They were so good. So I was pleasantly surprised by the fig rolls, even though my dough cracked. The scored bread was really fun. Unfortunately, I couldn't eat it, but it was really nice to get to try that technique as well and create something that was beautiful, even though I really couldn't eat it. I loved Dairy Week, where I made the cultured dairy cake. It was really exciting to introduce a family favorite and bring it on camera, and I don't know, it's exciting when you get to represent the things that are nostalgic to you, and that was really exciting as well. So I'm glad that I was able to produce that bake, and I didn't mess it up. It was delicious. The Prohibition cake was my favorite bake. I mentioned that before. Star Baker winner. I loved that. I mean, I was so proud of that. It was executed exactly. I had this thing in my brain and I was able to produce it, and that was really exciting. The verines, I enjoyed trying that because it was a myriad of techniques. It's not a dessert I would make again, but it was fun to do something that played with textures and techniques that I'm not familiar with. I enjoyed making the conchas. That was festival week. Festival buns, that is. I really want to try to do conchas again. The reason that I had mentioned in that episode that things were just kind of not going to plan is I kept finding these recipes that I felt strongly about doing, and then they needed to rest overnight or something like that. And that's just not something I was looking to do in this challenge. So at the last minute, I had to change my recipe. But there is a concha recipe that I really do want to try. And I was pleasantly surprised with those. I expected those to be a failure, and it was kind of a confidence boost that they weren't. The Moroccan pie, that's one of those bakes that I never would have tried if not for this challenge. It was time consuming. I had to go hunting for ingredients, and some of them were quite expensive, but I really enjoyed making something that is unfamiliar to my palate and a technique that I've never tried before with the painting on of the sheets of the pastry. Last week's domes tartlets, the penultimate challenge, I enjoyed using the silicone molds and trying out all of these different techniques. Like I've mentioned, my flavors didn't really hit, but I learned a lot about the technique to make the domes and do a filling, so that was cool. And then of course we ended on this week, one of my favorite things, chocolate cake. I can't be disappointed because, you know, like I've said, I've covered it in the past. But thank you for all of you who have watched this from the beginning. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you feel inspired to go bake or try a challenge that you want to do. I think I would do this again in the future. But I'm glad the challenge is over. A little bit less planning going our way. But I really enjoyed it, and if you did too and you haven't subscribed, please do. I'm gonna, of course, keep posting on this channel, and thank you for joining us for our very first series, first Bake Off series. If you liked this, please let me know down in the comments, and let me know if there are things you'd like to see from me in the future, other challenges, other series, any things like that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. If this had been successful, I'd have been like, flowers, oh my gosh, you just have to believe in yourself. But no, now I have to go, well, whoever won, whoever that other person was, they absolutely deserved it. Good on them. Anyway, you know how British people are like, oh, it could never have been me. Oh, they're so nice. Anyway. Yes, all right. Do you see how he's like, please don't put me down. Oh my gosh. Ah, what? He has never done this before. Look at this. Oh my gosh, Pelos, what are you doing? Oh, he's purring so much. He's just the happiest cat in the world. Okay, now I'm gonna try to put him down, and he's gonna fight me. See? Pelos, stop! Why don't you go hang out with the human off camera? Huh? There's two of us. All right.